Welcome, beloved anointed ones. When a system starts paying attention to someone who never asked to be seen, it's already too late to pretend nothing is happening. There's a strange moment in life when things shift so fast it feels unreal. One day you're moving quietly, minding your business, doing your own work, surviving your own storms. The next, your name is circulating in rooms you've never been invited into. People who never noticed you suddenly have opinions. Energy around you changes. Conversations pause when you walk in. And somehow, without any dramatic announcement, the atmosphere starts to feel official. Here's a grounded fact most people don't talk about. Throughout history, individuals who break psychological, social, or family patterns without becoming destructive are always studied, watched, and discussed. Not because they're causing harm, but because they disrupt expectations. Systems are built on predictability. When someone survives pressure and still functions clearly, calmly, and independently, it creates a problem no rule book prepared for. This is where the talk of the town phase begins. Not the loud kind with headlines and spotlights, but the quieter one. The sideways looks, the sudden interest, the oddly timed concern, the attention that feels less like curiosity and more like supervision. It's when ordinary life starts feeling like you accidentally walked onto a set you didn't audition for. No script in hand, but everyone else seems to know their lines. And let's be honest for a second, some of it is almost funny. People who ignored you for years suddenly acting like unpaid investigators. Folks who never asked how you are now deeply invested in what you're really about. You'd laugh if it didn't feel so coordinated. It's the kind of humor that makes you smirk and think, wow, I didn't realize my existence came with a background committee. But beneath the irony is something serious unfolding. This isn't random attention. This isn't coincidence. This is what happens when someone quietly outgrows the version of them that made others comfortable. When you stop fitting neatly into old assumptions, the environment reacts. Not loudly, not immediately, but deliberately. What you're experiencing isn't chaos. It's a response. And once you see that, everything that looks like it's going down starts making a lot more sense. Number one, they're not watching you because you're guilty. They're watching because your survival broke their math. People like to believe attention comes from mistakes, noise, or wrongdoing. That's comforting, because it means if you stay small or stay quiet, you stay safe. But that belief falls apart when someone goes through pressure that should have crushed them and comes out steady. That's when the watching begins. Not because you did something wrong, but because the outcome doesn't match the expectation. Somewhere along the line, assumptions were made about you, about how long you'd last, about what you'd become, about whether you'd self-destruct, submit, or disappear. Those assumptions weren't personal at first. They were statistical. Most people break in predictable ways. Pain usually produces certain behaviors. Trauma often leads to certain endings. You didn't follow the pattern, and that's what disrupted the numbers. When reality refuses to cooperate with prediction, it makes people uneasy. They start replaying the story, checking for a hidden explanation. Maybe you're hiding something. Maybe there's a secret advantage. Maybe there's a flaw they haven't uncovered yet. Because accepting that someone can endure, adapt, and remain intact without becoming cold or cruel forces them to question their own limits. So they observe, closely, quietly. They look for signs of instability, arrogance, guilt, or collapse, not to protect anyone, but to restore the comfort of certainty. If they can find a crack, the math makes sense again. If they can label you, the anomaly disappears. What they struggle with is this: survival without bitterness is hard to categorize. Strength without aggression doesn't fit the usual boxes. You don't behave like someone who should have been broken. And that unsettles people more than chaos ever could. That's why the attention feels different. It's not curiosity, it's verification. They're waiting for proof that the rules still work. And every day you stay grounded, functional, and clear-minded without playing a role, the discomfort grows. You're not under a microscope because you're a problem. You're there because you quietly became evidence that the outcome doesn't always obey the formula. Number 2, the talk of the town isn't gossip. It's collective confusion looking for a villain. When people start talking about you non-stop, it's rarely about what you actually did. It's about what they can't understand. Humans are wired to make sense of patterns, and when someone refuses to fit into any of the expected patterns, the mind panics. Suddenly, your life becomes a puzzle that everyone feels entitled to solve, and the easiest solution is to assign a villain, a suspect, or a threat. It's simpler than admitting that someone just refuses to follow the usual rules. What's fascinating is how quickly normalcy can turn into suspicion. People who never gave you a second thought now replay every moment, conversation or decision, hunting for a justification. It's not curiosity, it's discomfort in disguise. The fact that you survived what should have broken you, handled challenges with composure, and refused to conform creates cognitive dissonance in observers. They can't figure out whether to admire you, fear you, or undermine you, so the default is to talk. Loudly, constantly. The talk spreads like wildfire because confusion is contagious. A story exaggerates here, a detail twists there, and suddenly your life is a headline in private group chats, side conversations, and office whispers. It's less about you and more about how ill-prepared they are to understand strength that isn't performative. People need a narrative. They can't sit with the fact that someone can endure, adapt, and stay clean without drama. Their chatter is their way of processing the impossibility in front of them. And here's the ironic part. All that energy meant to destabilize you usually bounces back. They're scrambling to define you while you continue to exist beyond their framework. Every word they speak is proof that you've created a reality they cannot control. The more they dissect, speculate, and invent, the clearer it becomes that you're not the problem. Their inability to comprehend you is. Being the talk of the town is never about guilt or error. It's a spotlight born from collective confusion, a chaotic echo of people trying desperately to reconcile what they assumed about the world with what you are actually showing them. And the more they talk, the more they reveal their own limitations, while you remain untouchable by their narratives. Number 3, authority energy shows up when control quietly slips. There's a pattern you start to notice when people in positions of influence or power turn their attention toward you. It's subtle at first, a glance that lingers, a sudden check-in, a protocol that didn't exist before. They're not reacting to drama or mistakes. They're reacting to the quiet fact that your presence, your behavior, or your survival has upset the balance they relied on. Control is an ecosystem. When one piece of it stops behaving the way it's expected to, the rest scrambles to stabilize itself, and that's when authority energy shows up. This energy doesn't appear because someone is watching for wrongdoing. It appears because systems are designed to track predictability. The moment you start making decisions, taking actions, or simply existing in a way that doesn't require permission or validation, predictability falters. And people who thrive on predictability, institutions, hierarchies, even families, suddenly sense a ripple they can't ignore. That ripple is dangerous in the most unnerving way. It's invisible, unprovable, and unstoppable. The authority isn't coming at you like a wave. It's a measured response. They observe your patterns, calculate potential outcomes, and intervene only when their control is threatened. You might notice rules suddenly enforced that didn't exist before, scrutiny where none was needed, or unnecessary supervision disguised as concern. None of this is personal in the way you think. It's systemic. It's about maintaining a framework that your independence has quietly cracked. The strange thing is how disorienting it can feel. You haven't changed. You've simply refused to fit into their assumptions. And they don't know how to handle someone who can operate without needing to be managed, labeled, or predicted. That's why you feel the pressure. It's not aimed at you. It's aimed at restoring their sense of order. Being in this zone is a signal, not a punishment. It's proof that you've reached a point where your power exists naturally, without theatrics or rebellion. And the more they try to impose, the more evident it becomes that the control they relied on is slipping, and nothing short of recognition, not manipulation, will fix it. Number 4. They're investigating your character, not your actions. Most people assume attention comes from what you do, but that's only half the story. The deeper, more unsettling truth is that people often focus on who you are at your core, especially when you refuse to conform. Your choices, your routines, and your reactions are easy to see, but your integrity, your composure, your internal rules, those are the things that truly make them uneasy. They're not watching for mistakes. They're watching for patterns that reveal whether you'll fold under pressure or become unrecognizable when challenged. When someone observes you this closely, it's not curiosity, it's examination. Every interaction becomes data. Every smile, every refusal, every moment you hold steady is measured against their assumptions. They want to know if your resilience is real or if it's just a performance that will eventually crack. They're looking for flaws, not in what you did, but in what you are. And that is far more unnerving because flaws in character aren't fixable with apologies or explanations. They reveal the essence of a person. What makes this even more intense is that character is invisible until tested. People are patient with mistakes, with drama, with outbursts, but they are terrified of someone whose character holds under pressure. When you survive challenges, remain steady, and refuse to mirror their chaos, you become an anomaly. And anomalies demand attention, not because they are dangerous in the traditional sense, but because they expose the fragility in everyone else. They shine a light on how people operate when the illusion of control is removed, and that truth is uncomfortable. This is why scrutiny feels so personal, even when it isn't. They are not judging your actions. They are assessing your essence, your capacity to endure without becoming bitter or compromised. That is what scares them, and why you feel their gaze in moments where nothing seems wrong. The attention isn't an accusation. It's a verification process. And every day you remain consistent, unshakable, and unmanipulated, the more you prove that their assumptions about people, about life, and about control are fundamentally broken. Number 5. What looks like. Threat is actually projection. Wearing a uniform, the energy you feel when people act hostile toward you is rarely about you at all. What they are projecting onto you is a reflection of their own fears, insecurities, and untamed impulses. The things they accuse you of, manipulation, plotting, recklessness, or even malice, are often things they are capable of themselves, but refuse to face. So instead of acknowledging their own darkness, they stamp it onto you, turning their anxiety into a story that justifies attention, control, or confrontation. This projection is subtle but relentless. It shows up as suspicion, as overanalysis, as exaggerated warnings. They speak as though you are the threat when, in reality, the threat has always been their own unresolved impulses. Their discomfort with your composure, independence, or survival becomes a lens through which they see danger everywhere you walk. You become a mirror they can't look away from, and the more you exist outside their assumptions, the more intense the projection becomes. What makes this tricky is that projection dressed as authority, concern, or investigation can appear legitimate. It can feel like accusation. It can look like a threat. People who don't understand the mechanics of projection may even start doubting themselves. But the truth is simple. You're not doing what they fear you are. Their story about you is their attempt to rationalize their own inability to control what they don't understand. The irony is sharp. By labeling you as dangerous, reckless, or guilty, they reveal more about themselves than about you. Their fear, disguised as critique, becomes the clearest evidence that you are operating in a space they can't dominate. Every accusation, every suspicious glance, every attempt to frame you is a projection of qualities they wrestle with privately. Your calm, your clarity, your unwavering presence. That's what triggers them, not your actions. And the moment you recognize this, you stop carrying the weight of their stories. The hostility wasn't about you from the beginning. It was always about what they refused to face in themselves. Your survival and your integrity expose that truth louder than any argument could. Number 6. You trigger the fear of exposure. Without saying a word, there's a quiet kind of power in simply existing with integrity, resilience, and clarity, and that's exactly what makes people uncomfortable around you. You don't have to speak, act aggressively, or even try to prove anything. Your presence alone unsettles those who live in compromise, dishonesty, or constant performance. Simply by being unshakable and unbroken, you highlight the cracks in everyone else's story, and people instinctively respond with fear, suspicion, and scrutiny. When someone is watching, reacting, or whispering about you, it's rarely about what you did. It's about what your very being exposes, the things people are trying to hide from themselves and the world. You trigger a mirror effect without intending to. Every confident movement, every consistent choice, every refusal to participate in drama silently says, I don't need to cheat, manipulate, or compromise to exist. That alone is enough to make people jittery. This fear isn't conscious at first. It starts as tension, as curiosity, as the subtle need to explain your presence or to control your narrative. The longer you exist without conforming to the hidden rules of their world, the louder that fear becomes. People start looking for reasons to justify their discomfort. They overanalyze, misinterpret, and invent explanations because admitting the real source, that you simply refuse to fit the mold, would be too unsettling. The most fascinating part is that this fear grows precisely because there's nothing to attack. You aren't doing what they expected, and that lack of predictability threatens the invisible systems people rely on to feel safe. They respond by scrutinizing, questioning, and sometimes plotting, but it never touches you directly because the real power you have lies in your consistency and calm. You don't even need to defend yourself. The truth is self-evident. Every whisper, every sideways glance, every sudden measure of attention confirms that your existence exposes what they don't want to face. You are a living reminder that survival, integrity, and clarity are possible without compromise, and that is more frightening to people than any action you could take. Number 7. This isn't about justice. It's about narrative control. Most people mistake the attention or pressure coming at you for judgment, fairness, or justice. They assume someone is evaluating right or wrong, but that's rarely the case. What they're really trying to manage is the story. They want to control the narrative about you before it escapes their hands, because the truth, your truth, exists outside the convenient scripts they've relied on for years. They don't care if you're right or innocent. What matters to them is how you are framed, labeled, and understood by everyone else. When a narrative is in control, confusion disappears. Rules make sense. Chaos is contained. People feel safe in believing they understand the world. But when someone like you refuses to fit the expected role, when your resilience, integrity, or unexpected outcomes break the storyline, panic sets in. Suddenly, every gesture you make, every decision you take, is analyzed not for its content, but for how it can be interpreted to preserve the existing framework. That's why scrutiny often feels disproportionate. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the collapse of the story they've been relying on. Narrative control is relentless. They will overemphasize minor mistakes, twist harmless choices, and amplify coincidences to make you appear a problem. Every whisper, every rumor, every subtle adjustment in treatment is an attempt to manipulate perception. They want the world to see a version of you that fits expectations, one that justifies their discomfort, suspicion, or authority. They don't care if the version is fair or true, it only needs to be believable. The power of this dynamic is that it often feels personal when it isn't. It's systemic, strategic, and calculated. Your reality, your clarity, your survival are inconvenient truths, and that makes them desperate to rewrite the story before it spreads. The more you stay consistent, the more they scramble. The more they try to control, the clearer it becomes that the real threat to them is not you, but the fact that you exist outside their narrative, untouched by assumptions and unshakable under pressure. This isn't about justice, it's about control. And every move you make quietly dismantles the story they were certain they could tell. Number 8. They're testing you to see if pressure can rewrite you. When scrutiny hits, it often feels personal, but the truth is, it's a test. People, systems, and even institutions don't always react to what you do. They react to how you handle the unseen weight. Every delay, every unnecessary rule, every sideways glance, every subtle attempt to provoke you is a measure. They want to know if pressure can change you, if stress can force you into patterns that serve their comfort, if fear can make you bend to expectation. This testing is relentless because it doesn't stop with one observation. It comes in layers. The first layer might be simple, a small challenge to see how you respond. The second layer is more calculated. They add inconsistencies, contradictions, or obstacles to see whether you'll crack, overreact, or reveal hidden weaknesses. It's not about punishing you, it's about gathering data. Every reaction you have, every calm moment you maintain, every choice you make under scrutiny is being recorded silently in people's minds. They're trying to find a formula, a method to predict and control you. What makes this dangerous is that they rarely recognize your consistency as a form of power. Most people respond to pressure with defensiveness, anger, or overcompensation. You, however, respond with clarity, composure, and awareness. That refusal to be rewritten unsettles them. It challenges the assumption that everyone bends when pushed, that everyone folds under expectation, and that everyone eventually conforms. Every attempt to provoke you is a reflection of their own insecurity. They can't handle that someone can survive difficulty without becoming someone else. That's why the tests escalate, why the attention intensifies, and why the pressure feels disproportionate. It isn't a personal vendetta. It's a reaction to the fact that your essence isn't negotiable, that your integrity can't be corrupted, and that your presence defies their expectations. In the end, every layer of testing only proves what they fear most, that you cannot be rewritten. Your calm, your survival, your clarity under pressure becomes the quietest, most profound rebellion, and they can't do anything to stop it. Number 9. You're being watched because you didn't become what hurt you. The most unsettling truth about attention isn't that people care. It's that they notice when someone refuses to follow the predictable path of pain. Most people who go through trauma, betrayal, or pressure end up carrying pieces of it forward, often unconsciously. Bitterness, defensiveness, manipulation, or fear become part of their daily rhythm. That's the invisible law most observers assume everyone obeys. Hardship breaks people, and broken people behave in ways that are easy to predict. You didn't. Because you didn't become what hurt you, you stick out. Your composure, your clarity, your ability to navigate chaos without losing yourself is alarming. People don't know how to categorize you. They can't place you into their models of survival or failure. And that's exactly why they watch. Your resilience isn't loud. It's not performative. It's quiet. And it exposes the predictable cracks in everyone around you. The ones who hurt, the ones who manipulate, the ones who expect others to fall in line. All of them are suddenly visible in a way they don't like. Being watched for this reason is different from suspicion or control. It's a mixture of fear and awe. They are trying to figure out why you aren't bitter, why you aren't defensive, why you aren't reproducing the pain you survived. And the truth is simple. You refuse to be rewritten by what should have broken you. That refusal is both a threat and a revelation. Every glance, every question, every measure of attention is them recalculating the rules. They thought they understood survival, but you've rewritten the equation without even trying. The stronger your integrity and resilience, the more uncomfortable it makes them, because your survival disproves their assumptions and forces them to face truths they'd rather ignore. You're not being observed because of failure or misstep. You're being observed because you did something they assumed impossible. You survived, and you remained whole. And that alone changes the way the world responds to you. Number 10. The spotlight isn't new, it's just finally visible. It's easy to feel like suddenly everyone is paying attention to you, like the spotlight arrived out of nowhere. But the truth is, it's rarely new. The attention has been there all along, quietly accumulating, carefully observing, and analyzing every move, every response, and every choice you made. What's new is that now it's visible, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. The systems, the people, and the energy around you didn't just wake up one day and decide to focus on you. They've been watching, waiting, and calculating for a long time. This visibility is uncomfortable for those who relied on your predictability or compliance. They've been forming opinions, estimating outcomes, and quietly measuring your resilience without you knowing it. And suddenly, you can see the impact of their observation. The sideways looks, the subtle adjustments, the shifts in tone and protocol, all of it was quietly brewing, waiting for a moment when your presence could no longer be ignored. That moment has arrived, and it forces everyone to confront what they've been trying to control in the background. What makes this phase so potent is how it distorts perception. People act as if something dramatic has changed, as if a new threat or problem has appeared. In reality, nothing changed about you. Your life, your choices, your strength have always existed. It's the observation that has become tangible. The spotlight isn't new. It's just no longer hidden behind the walls of ignorance or assumption. And here's the sharpest irony. The more obvious the attention becomes, the more it reflects the observers, not you. Every rule suddenly enforced, every subtle measure, every whispered concern is a reaction to what they fear, not what you did. They scramble to make sense of your reality because they can no longer ignore it, and that frantic recalibration exposes their discomfort, insecurity, and lack of control. Being in the visible spotlight is not a burden, it's proof that your life, your resilience, and your integrity have always mattered, even when no one said it aloud. What's changed isn't you, it's the moment the world can no longer pretend you're ordinary. Number 11. Your calm is misread as strategy, because chaos is the default language. People who live in reaction, drama, and constant turbulence assume that everyone operates the same way. Their default is chaos, so when someone responds with calm, control, and clarity, it immediately registers as unusual, and unusual is often interpreted as calculated. Your ability to remain steady, to observe, and to respond thoughtfully is not a strategy for manipulation. It's just how you exist. But to them, it looks deliberate, as if every move is plotted, timed, and intended to serve some hidden agenda. This misreading happens because most people are conditioned to expect survival to come with loud signals, anger, defensiveness, over-explaining, or visible struggle. When those signals are missing, the mind scrambles to fill in the blanks. Your calm becomes suspicious. Your patience becomes a plan. Your silence is interpreted as scheming. And the more composed you remain, the more they assume there's a hidden layer, a concealed tactic, or a secret weapon at play. What makes this especially compelling is that your presence highlights their assumptions without you having to do anything. You exist, steady and clear, and their perception immediately tries to catch up. They overthink, misinterpret, and sometimes overcompensate, acting preemptively because they believe your calm is preparation for something aggressive or disruptive. That reaction says more about them than it does about you. Their instinct to assign strategy to steadiness exposes their own discomfort with composure, patience, and restraint. The irony is that what they fear, a hidden plan, a quiet coup, or a sudden reveal, doesn't exist. You're not plotting, calculating, or scheming. You're simply showing that control can exist without manipulation, strength without aggression, and resilience without drama. Their assumption that calm equals strategy is just a reflection of their inability to interpret stability correctly. Your calm, unshakable presence disrupts the default narrative of chaos, forcing people to confront a reality they weren't prepared for. And every misread glance, whispered suspicion, and over-analyzed movement is proof that steadiness alone has power. The kind of power that doesn't need to speak to be noticed, feared, or misunderstood. Number 12. They don't know whether to protect you or eliminate the risk you represent. When people fix their attention on you, the energy around you often feels contradictory, half cautious respect, half anxious hostility. That tension isn't random. It comes from confusion about what you actually represent. You're not a problem they can solve or a threat they can categorize. You exist in a space that forces them to make a choice they aren't equipped to make. Do they shield you because they see value, or do they neutralize you because they feel unsettled? That uncertainty creates a chaotic energy that hangs around you like static electricity. The dilemma they face is revealing. On one hand, they sense that attacking, manipulating, or undermining you could backfire. They can't predict your reactions, and that unpredictability is uncomfortable. On the other hand, leaving you alone feels equally risky because your presence challenges their assumptions, exposes their weaknesses, and reminds them that control isn't absolute. They don't know which move keeps them safe, so they vacillate, creating inconsistent behavior that only amplifies the tension. This push and pull in the energy around you highlights a deeper truth. They recognize the kind of influence you have, even if they can't define it. They see that you operate on principles they don't understand, that your survival and composure under pressure are not negotiable, and that your integrity cannot be rewritten. That combination threatens the order they are used to, forcing them to question every instinct about how people should behave. What makes this even more telling is how their reactions escalate with time. The longer you maintain consistency, clarity, and strength, the more they wobble between admiration, fear, and attempts to intervene. They can't decide if they need to protect what they secretly respect or dismantle what they can't predict. Every glance, comment, and movement becomes a negotiation they never intended to have. Being in this space is uncomfortable for them, but revealing for you. It shows exactly how much power your stability holds, not in confrontation, but in the quiet disruption of expectation. You force them to confront a reality they didn't prepare for, and that indecision proves that your presence alone commands influence. They can neither control nor ignore. Number 13. This phase exists to harden your discernment, not your ego. The pressure, scrutiny, and attention you're experiencing right now is not designed to inflate your ego or prove your strength to the world. It exists to sharpen your perception, to test your ability to see clearly through chaos, deception, and manipulation. Life doesn't care about your comfort or your popularity. It cares about your clarity. Every sideways glance, every whispered conversation, every subtle attempt to unsettle you is part of a system testing whether you can recognize truth without letting pride, anger, or fear cloud your judgment. This phase strips away illusions. People reveal themselves in ways you wouldn't expect. Actions and words that seem harmless are often loaded with intent, subtle control, or hidden agendas. When you maintain awareness through it all, your discernment becomes your shield. It's no longer about reacting to drama or proving yourself. It's about observing, understanding, and knowing exactly who and what deserves your attention and energy. That ability is far more valuable than winning arguments or asserting dominance, because it ensures your moves are calculated and your energy uncompromised. Here's the critical part most people miss. The challenge isn't external, it's internal. The world isn't asking you to become tougher in a physical or superficial sense. It's asking you to refine your perception, to recognize patterns, and to respond only where it truly matters. Every misstep in judgment, every overreaction, every unnecessary confrontation chips away at your clarity, and that is exactly what the pressure is testing. By the end of this phase, you emerge with a kind of vision few people develop. You can see people's intentions without them speaking, recognize threats without confrontation, and understand the dynamics around you without being drawn into chaos. Your ego doesn't grow, but your awareness does, and that awareness becomes a quiet form of power no one can touch. This is why those around you are unsettled. They see the transformation happening silently, and they know instinctively that clarity can't be controlled, manipulated, or broken. This phase is not about proving strength. It's about building unshakable discernment that will guide you through everything else in life with precision and unbending confidence. Number 14. What goes down next isn't exposure. It's clarification. The attention, scrutiny, and tension you're experiencing right now is leading somewhere, and it's not about drama or revelation in the way most people think. What's coming isn't exposure in the sense of someone discovering a hidden fault or weakness. It's clarification. The moment when the truth about you, your integrity, your resilience, and your survival becomes undeniable to everyone paying attention. It's the point where all the assumptions, speculations, and projections that people have been circulating finally collide with reality, and nothing fabricated can withstand the weight of what you actually are. This phase can feel intense because the world is impatient to understand you, to categorize you, or to control the story around you. They've spent so long assuming you would falter, bend, or break that the mere act of continuing unshaken is disruptive. Every side glance, every whispered rumor, every subtle test they've placed in your path is designed to catch a crack. But the truth is, there is no crack to catch. You are whole, intact, and operating from a place that cannot be manipulated or predicted. That's why the pressure feels so heavy. The universe, systems, and people alike are all waiting for something to happen that never does, and the suspense in that waiting is palpable. Clarification doesn't need drama, confrontation, or loud announcements. It comes in small but undeniable ways. Patterns that finally make sense, inconsistencies that finally reveal themselves, and the silent recognition that you were never the problem. What others expected to see, mistakes, compromise, or collapse, never appeared. And that makes the truth about you unavoidable. Everyone who doubted, questioned, or observed is forced to reconcile with reality, and no fabrication, excuse, or projection can survive against it. This is the quiet power of being consistent under pressure. It forces clarity not by words or action, but simply by existing as the version of yourself that refuses to be rewritten. What's coming next is not judgment or exposure. It's the unveiling of truth so obvious that no story, assumption, or narrative can overwrite it. In that moment, everyone finally sees you as you always were, unshakable, intact, and undeniable. Conclusion. What you've just seen isn't a random sequence of events or a series of coincidences. It's a blueprint of how the world responds when someone refuses to be defined, manipulated, or broken by circumstance. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every subtle measure of scrutiny is part of a system testing whether you can survive, endure, and maintain your integrity in the face of pressure. And you are passing that test not by reacting loudly, not by defending yourself unnecessarily, but by simply existing as the unshakable version of yourself. You've learned that attention is rarely about guilt or wrongdoing. It's about the disruption of expectation. It's about the way your calm, clarity, and resilience expose the cracks in systems, institutions, and people who have grown comfortable with predictability. The more composed and consistent you remain, the more uncomfortable those around you become. That discomfort isn't a reflection of your flaws. It's a reflection of their inability to comprehend someone who refuses to be rewritten by circumstance, someone who refuses to mirror chaos, fear, or manipulation. You've also seen that what looks like threat, hostility, or accusation is often projection in disguise. People assign their own fears, insecurities, and tendencies to you because they can't face them in themselves. The attention, the tests, and the scrutiny are not punishments. They're data points. Every reaction you observe around you is a mirror reflecting the insecurities and limits of others, not your reality. Your power lies in recognizing this and responding with discernment, not ego. And finally, the climax of this journey is clarification, not exposure. All the whispers, assumptions, and projections eventually collide with the unshakable truth of who you are. Reality cannot be rewritten, and in the end, the world is forced to acknowledge the version of you that has always existed, composed, intact, and undeniable. This is a phase of recognition, a moment where the silent strength you've carried under pressure finally becomes visible, not because you sought it, but because it cannot be hidden. So take this knowledge, hold it, and move with confidence. Your presence is already powerful, and your integrity is already transforming the way people see you and the world around you. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave a comment sharing your experience, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Every interaction strengthens the clarity, resilience, and awareness that keeps you unshakable and helps others see what they've been missing all along. God bless you.